I'm working in the area of sports psychology and performance in Israel, and I'm going to take you to a completely different subject than what you heard until now. And this is focusing on young female athletes, on their motivation and adherence to participate in a competitive sport. So I will start with, just a second. Oh, okay, I will start with some introduction. Motivation in sport is a keystone for sport success, and is very relevant and important at all skill levels of athletes, from early skill development in children until up to to elite level participation in sport. And now the changes in direction and intensity of motivation in sport can lead to a negative impact on adherence and participation in athletic preparation, up to the point of dropping out of sport, which is one of the major problems in youth sport. Now, translating the theory into practice shows that motivational strength and content are not consistent along athletes' career, and that it is therefore important to zoom in to the temporal structure of motivation, which means to look on motivation across the lifespan. Understanding the changes in motivational pattern throughout athletic career is necessary for applying the relevant psychological support, which what we're doing as sports psychologists, and training as part of athletes' psychological development, starting from childhood, continuing to adolescence, and finally, of course, to adulthood. Now, research literature, just to give you a little background, has indicated that the important aspect of youth sport include enjoyment, satisfaction, appreciation, and the motive to continue sport activity are having friends, achieving excellence, improving skills, winning games, things like that. On the other end of motivation may lead to lack of motivation, may lead to dropping out from sport, especially among young athletes. Now, for example, studies, just to give you some numbers, studies from the National Alliance for Youth Sport have found that out of 40 million children participating in various sport disciplines, 70% dropped out before the age of 13, which is unbelievable number. And to zoom in to girls, the numbers are 64% for girls until age 16 to 17, which is much higher compared to males. Now, some of the major reasons the girls indicated were that sport was no longer fun, they have pressure from parents, sport injuries, coach pressure, things like that. In addition to that, research has shown that one of the obstacles young female athletes face is lack of psychological support, which may finally lead to dropout from competitive sport. Now, a systematic psychological support, while taking into consideration gender, personality, sport discipline, and periodization of the training process, has already been put out into practice, which means there are many studies, well, not so many, but there were already a few studies looking on that specifically. However, not enough attention is being paid to the dynamic of motivation during sport career, which may be an influential concept affecting the adherence of young female athletes. Now, this idea is especially important since it has been found that the dropout rate is higher among female compared to male, as I just mentioned. Now, a few studies that I conducted, this is me, Orbach, and her colleague, found that motivational dynamic may be different for individual sports such as swimming, judo, track and field, gymnastics, and team sport such as soccer, basketball, handball, and volleyball. Okay, so we need to look at this factor of the sport discipline, team versus individual. Now, to be more concrete, it is important to investigate whether specific sport disciplines are characterized by differences in their participational motivational dynamics. And therefore, I'm getting to the major aim of the study. The major aim of this research is to investigate the differences in motivational dynamics among young female athletes participating in judo or in basketball. Now, I choose these two sport disciplines specifically since they're the most popular among youth female in my country, in Israel. And this investigation has been carried out focusing on the motivational pattern involved in joining, continuing participation, as well as the obstacle athletes face during their athletic career. And now, talking generally in the future, based on the result of this study, I hope that it will be possible to recommend on effective psychological support, taking into consideration the unique motivational dynamic for team and individual sports. Now, getting into the into the study itself. First of all, about the participants, I had 188 girls who practice regularly in a competitive setting as part of a national project for advancing women's sport. Participants ranged in age from 8 to 17 years old, and they were drawn from a different geographical area within the country. Some of them participated in basketball. We had 94 players, and some of them in judo, 91. And I divided them, to 3 different age groups according to chronological age to track their development. And we had the young group 8 to 10 years of age. We had the middle one, 11 to 13, and the adult one, which were 14 to 17 years of age. Now, the instrument that I used was the modified questionnaire by Good, Feltz, and Wise, which its purpose was to examine young athlete reason for participating in sport, and it was tailored specifically to the research objective, okay? Now, we conducted factor analysis to the questionnaire. We had, the questionnaire included 3 parts. Part that investigated the motive to start sport participation, the motives to continue sport participation, and the obstacles which may lead to dropout. So we did factor analysis to the three parts. And what we found, as you can see in the table, we had 5 factors for starting. The IM stands for intrinsic motivation. EM stands for external motivation. TM for team motivation. WM for winning motivation. And the HM for health motivation. Now, when you look on the factors that we revealed in the continue sport participation, you see that the first 3 are the same. Okay, and the last 2 is CM stands for competitive motivation, and the HOB-M stands for hobby motivation. And the last part, we revealed 4 major obstacles that athletes face, which is the coach factor, EF is the external factors, NSF is no success factor, and NTF is no time factor. Now, regarding the results, okay, I'm starting with the results for the starting motivation. We conducted a 2-way ANOVA with repeated measure. We used the post-hoc test with Bonferroni adjustment. Okay, and what we found out was that the motivation to start sport participation was higher, was significantly higher, of course, among basketball athletes compared with judo athletes. We found a few more results with the post-hoc test. One of them, for example, we found that when we are talking about the age, okay, so the older age group, their motivation was lower compared to the young and the middle age group, which was interesting. When we are looking on the results for the continue, what is the motivation? What are the motives to continue sport participation? Again, we conducted the same analysis with the 2-way ANOVA, with the 2x3 and the Bonferroni as a post-hoc. And what we found out that the motivation to continue sport participation was higher again among basketball players compared to judo athletes. And also with the post hoc test, we found a few more things, but again, similarly to what we found about the starting position, we found that the older age group was higher compared to the young and the middle age group. Okay. The last one, when we're talking about the obstacle, what are the obstacles that the athlete face? We found the opposite than what we found before, which means that the judo athlete faced a stronger, or what's another word for it, more intense obstacle compared to basketball athletes. Okay, which means that they perceive all the four obstacles that we mentioned: the coach factor, external factor, no success factor, and no time factor, significantly stronger compared to the basketball players. So what does all this mean? Okay, first of all, just to remind you about what was the major aim. We said that the major aim of the study was to investigate the differences in motivational dynamics among young female athletes participating in team sport, specifically we talked about basketball, and individual sport, specifically the judo. Okay, now the results show that the motivation to join and continue sport activity was stronger among basketball players compared to the judo athletes. Okay, in all 5 factors investigated, we found that the basketball are stronger than the judo. Now, in addition, we found that among the adult female athletes, the motivation to continue sport activity was stronger, especially regarding the competitiveness, than among the younger athletes, regardless of sport discipline, which means that no matter basketball or judo, okay, when we're talking about motivation to continue, the adult group were more intense or more motivated by competitiveness compared to the younger one. Something else that we found regarding the obstacle that athletes face during their training and competition, results show that the judoka perceived the obstacle of no success, no time, coach pressure, and other external stressors as being much more stronger compared to the basketball player. Special attention should be given to the judoka expectation for fast success, especially at the young age, because of the result. Most of the time, when we analyze it, most of the time the judoka experience failure in contradiction to the focus they put on the importance of winning. In addition, psychological support for young judoka should emphasize strengthening their psychological resilience. Therefore, there is a need to modify the psychological support they receive based on the stage of their sport career of the athlete, whether they're starting, continuing, or getting to an older age. In judo, such special attention should be provided, especially after experiencing loss, since the results indicated an orientation that focused on expectation for success. On the other end, when we're talking about basketball, individual success is not as important to team success since responsibility is distributed among all players. The dynamic of motivational disposition indicated the importance of professional development of typical team sport strategies. Data shows that the motivation of basketball players include the need to be part of a team, to meet with friends, and to socialize. These motives in combination may be enough for joining basketball. However, for strengthening the psychological team climate to decrease dropout rate in the future, the motivation to be part of a team should focus on factors leading to professional team development, such as cohesion, leadership, and sportsmanship. It may be second, I need to move. Okay. It may be recommended that during the young age, no matter what the sport discipline is, whether it's team or individual, psychological support should include strategies that focus on motivation to improve performance, rather than the motivation to win. This kind of orientation would facilitate the protection of young female athletes from experiencing feeling of no success. Based on this study, an idea to be considered is the relationship between motivation dynamics and psychological support and training. On one end, when considering the motivational dynamics of the athlete, psychological support would be more effective. On the other end, effective psychological support would have an impact on strengthening sport motivation. Now, both directions would finally lead to lower dropout rate and to performance enhancement among young female athletes. Now, if I'm looking farther, sports psychology consultants are able to confer with coaches and administrators. They can educate athletes and their parents, and most importantly, they can work with young female athletes on appropriate and specific psychological support, considering various variables, such as we said, the sport discipline. This can be achieved by strengthening the psychological education program for coaches and by including a professional sports psychology consultant as part of the professional staff working with young female athletes. I hope very much that this kind of recommendation, first of all, this kind of result, and based on that recommendation, we'll be able in the long run to decrease the percentage of dropping out from sport among young female athletes. And then we will be able to see larger or higher percentage of female athletes in participation in sport, in administrators, in coaching, and so on. Thank you very much.